Hello, everyone. My name is Kuba, and that's not me. His name is Otzi, and I would like to introduce you to him. Otzi has died 5,000 years ago, somewhere in the Alps, but fortunately, his body was found 25 years ago. And why I'm talking about Otzi right now? Because he had got a lot of fancy equipment with him. There was a poncho made from sticks, there was some healing shrooms, there was leather shoes, and so on. And he was a kind of genius because he was enabled to make them by their own. And this is very important because this is the main difference between us and him. We are today totally surrounded by the things that we cannot construct by ourselves. We rely on them, we rely on the unknown sources of knowledge, our known sources of the materials. Otzi was totally self-sufficient. There was a guy in the United Kingdom, there's a designer whose name was Thomas Flates, and he decided to create his own toaster from the scratch. So he went to the marketplace, bought the cheapest toaster over there for the £4, and disassembled it into the small parts. So after that, he decided to, using the reverse engineering, build its own toaster. But not by ordering the things from all parts from the world, but going to the mine in the northern Scotland, mine the iron by himself, try to deliver get the plastic from the earth, or even make the tools to make the wooden forms for its form. And that was the result. The whole project cost him £1,200, broken electrical installation at his home, and he even didn't eat a toast. This somehow shows us how we are dependent on the system. We are living it and we are surrounded by it. So something from our field. There was a case in March this year. Maybe some of you know this case of Azer Kochulu, who was the author of these 11 lines of code. So, as many developers today, he has got this code on the NPM servers. And when he went into the conflict with the owners of the NPM platform, he decided to remove it from this server. And suddenly, next day, he somehow broke the part of the internet. Because it appears that the many libraries are using this part of package. Not directly, but the one package was embedded in another one, another one, another one. And when we are going that way, when we are going through this chain, we suddenly see that even React.js somehow was affected by the removal of this package. So, to describe the current state of the world, we can use the word intertwined. This is the term coined by Ted Nelson, the author of terms such as a hypertext or hypermedia. It is also the title of the book from Peter Morvai, who is the pioneer of the architecture, information, and user experience design. And we are living in a big, messy world with a lot of connections, dependencies. And as MC Escher once said, we adore chaos because we love to make order. So today, one of the best things to make an order is to connect these things and have a control on them. But to make an order, as I said, we have to have a control on them. For example, when we are creating today a service or a product, we try to investigate the context of the user. In the user-centered design methodology, we are focused on the user and we try to find his or her beliefs, we try to find rules which his or her are following, and also his or her basic needs. And then we want to somehow install the product within the existing context. So this is a well-known example from the contemporary world. If we want to host a tourist in our hotel, we need to have a physical infrastructure, we need to have a hostel. If we want to transform people from one place to another, we need to have a car. And that was the old model. And today, thanks to the knowledge-based economy, sharing economy, or collaborating economy as it is called, we can just build platforms and connect one people, one ecosystem with another. This is the well-known case, well-known pattern used by companies such as Uber or Airbnb. And it is so obvious for us because we are living in the world surrounded by platforms. But what is important, that platforms today, in the age of the information technology, are independent on the physical infrastructure. They are somehow parasitical. That means that we don't need to develop things, we just need to have information about them. So in this case, we are living in the times when the right to property becomes equal to the right to use. I don't need to have a car to take a profit from transforming people from one place to another. I need to know who has got a car and who can wants to go from one place to another. And just by using data flows, I can connect the people and take a profit from them. So when we look at the anatomy of platforms, we've got, of course, producers, consumers. And we've got the providers as the center of the platform. Of course, platform is nothing new because marketplaces or newspapers were platforms too. For example, we've got a newspaper and by using the medium of newspaper, we are sharing the advertisement companies with the subscribers. But now, as a providers in information technology environment, we can build the platform just using data. So the data was the most valuable matter of nowadays. And also, the other important person in this ecosystem, digital ecosystem of the platform is the owner. Owner as the owner of the intellectual laws, intellectual property on the platform, can decide who can be part of it and who cannot. Who has got the right to use and who hasn't. So one of the most brilliant examples of the platforms, and some people say that this move stays behind the big Apple success, was open the SDK for the developers in 2008, just 1 year after first iPhone. When we connect developers to perform apps with users, we build a platform and we can take a lot of profit of it. And this is something what works, and we know how this is fundamental for our everyday work today. And we totally rely on that, and we are totally dependent, our lives somehow, dependent on the one owner of the platform, which is App Store. Of course, there's a lot of other platforms. This is just an example, but we see what we could do if there is a not App Store. So when we look at the internet nowadays, we've got the platforms built upon platforms, upon platforms, upon platforms. And we see big flows of data going from the up to the down. And until we've got just one access point, which was our personal computer, first on our desk, then in our pockets, then we were somehow chained to this ecosystem. But now we are living in a totally different environment. This is the map of the ecosystem of Internet of Things from the last year. And we see it is totally distracted. There is as many places for new innovation. There is no one leader to take somehow control of it. The reason is simple. Because now, in the age of Internet of Things, the whole reality becomes our access point to the Internet. We no more have to somehow log in or log out to the Internet. We are still logged into it, even if we don't know about it. So we don't need to have our mobile phones or personal computers on our desk to be a part of the Internet of Things. We can multiply different devices and connect them to each other to be somehow part of the Internet of Things, to be another source of the data who can be somehow used by the platform providers. And this is something, for example, what Facebook will know. Now, Mark Zuckerberg is focused on developing current platform ecosystem, Facebook, just to get somehow later into the new technologies and somehow connect them to the existing rules which he has been developed. And the main problem of nowadays that we don't have is that we don't have social, cultural, and law infrastructure for the new technological developments. We are using well-known patterns that were established by the other platforms owner. We are following the fashion, we are following the commerce, but we are focusing on the quick change. We are very impatient, and we are rely on the quick profit, and we don't think about the future. How our products may change the world and may change the whole infrastructure. And as long we are dependent on the other platform providers, we cannot be safe because every time they can just take a plug from their socket. So now we are mostly rely on the tactics move within the fashion and commerce area when we need to think about strategy. This is the basic schema that shows that. Let's imagine that the structure is a big game board, for example, chess, and we can just make a moves within this game board. But still we are relying on some rules that were established by the other people. What we need to think is to think about the strategy, how to change the whole structure, how our products may impact on the existing structure and how can they create new rules. So to this approach, with help comes the speculative design. This is a new approach that begins at its roots are on the academic field, and it's mostly used in the product design area, but also is also used in the interactive design area. Excuse me. Oh, much better. And speculative design turns us again back to the question, whose problem we want to solve? Problem of the user or problem of the platform owner, problem of the system? So when we look at the future, we can divide it into different cones. First cone is the probable future, and this is future when we are moving tactically, when we are just predicting the next state of the system. Then we can, and it is stable as long as there is no war, but it happens, as long as there is no economical crisis, but still it happens, and as long there is no eco crash or something like that. Again, this still happens. Then we've got the plausible futures. Here is the place for the foresight, for the thinking about different strategies, different systems, different structures, and how we can build them. And also there is a possible future, still logical, still scientifically proved, but we don't know how to get there. But every time we can think about possible future as a utopia from which we are looking at the present and diagnose it and look what is wrong with right now, what can we change, what can be fixed. So we as designers, engineers, and technologists are supposed to working in this area of preferable future, to use the current state of the knowledge, current state of the structure we are within, and try to think strategically how to change it, how to create new rules, and how to be within it. So one of the tools not only is context-driven design, it's it's next to the user-centered design, because when we are focusing on the user, we very often focusing on the existing context, but we don't think about changing it. We just want to recognize it, describe it, and then use it as the material for our further work. When we are thinking about context-driven design, we must remember that there is one basic rule, that context shapes behavior. And I would like to perform a quick test, and I hope that it will work. I just want to ask you a question. What is your favorite animal? And here is the simple form in well-known UI context, radio buttons and animal. And I would like to ask you, to every person, to answer this question in your mind. So when you make it, are you done? Great. When you make it, I would change the UI context and put here the checkboxes. And again, you can see the question still is the same. What is your favorite animal? But the answer might be different. And you, again, begin thinking about this answer in different way. Because now you like not only the horses, but also the dogs, birds. For example, I do. But when we change the context once again and put here the sliders, then we see that we can totally change our behavior. Because not only we are answering what animal is our favorite, but also which we hate the most. And what is the skull from the other animals. So when we think about creating new product, we are very often, as I said, thinking about getting to the user through just one access point. Recognize the whole ecosystem, recognize what are its or her needs, which were somehow shaped by the current behavior, current system, current climate. What we have to do is to think about the whole context and try to reshape the whole context. Because yes, users are maybe rational, but they've got a free will. But still, we are the people who are making them choices. And we are the people who are make the place where the choices can be taken. So one of my favorite ways of preparing during the design process, during the research, is ethnography. And as you know, this is the passive observation of the user in its natural environment. But when we want to somehow introduce the innovation to the user, but when I'm talking about innovation, I don't have in mind this marketing sense of this word. But innovation, something what is totally new, we need to somehow crush the user with it. We need to build a context for him or her and check how he or she will behave within it. And now I'm working on a product, beacon-based product. It's called Wingu. We developed the admin panel, beacons, and the applications, and we built own ecosystem in which the user can provide content in easy way. This content will be broadcasted by the beacons to the user apps. And trust me, people don't understand what the beacons are, how they behave, and how can then be used, both from the client and the end user perspective. The main purpose of Wingu is to curate user-friendly platform which resolves the problem of end user, which is in this case the problem of information overload, and also we want to try deliver the more personalized content. And from the other hand, from the client perspective, is to create the new way to getting into the end user, to the customer, and to deliver him the more interactive and digitalized way of the digitalized information. So the main, let's say, aspects of this product is context, content, and user. So we perform the research in cooperation with the Museum of Contemporary Art in Krakow, where we use the familiar space, but here we installed the beacons, and we prepared the test for the users to check how they will behave in the new environment. And using the research equipment, such as the eye tracker, we did not only get the great insights about the UI of the app, but also we've got a lot of observation how user behaves when they are surrounded by the beacons, when there are new environment. And that does give a marvelous points or thoughts to move forward. So what is important during this creating the context for user? We are working in the interdisciplinary team, local interdisciplinary team, because there was a researcher, designer, and engineer developer. Every one of us knows this technology from different aspects, and this helped us to build the well-known, not well-known, but new context for the user. So when we are looking for innovation, we need to think somehow outside the system. We need to think outside the platform providers' rules. We need to think about in the context of Internet of Things, but also with the new development of technologies. Because when we look at the new technologies that are at the beginning of its existing in our life, then we know that thoughts about these technologies are now fueled by Hollywood movies, such as when we ask a user what is artificial intelligence or what is a synthetic biology, then we hear the stories about killer machines or mutants or unhealthy laboratory food. But we know that these are amazing things that could change our not only our state, but the state of the whole world, the structure of the whole world, and change the whole system. So at the end, I just want to sum up my whole speak with the one quote by Frederick Paul. And here, of course, is saying here about the writer, but we can also change this word exchange this word to the designer. Because when we create any product, we don't need to focus only on a product itself, but also how can it implement and how can it change the whole environment around it. Thank you.